What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Wildcat Cave. It's no secret that for the past few seasons for John Calipari have been, underwhelming at best. But it does seem that he has a team this season that can really turn heads and put Kentucky back on top of college basketball. The past few years have been full of disappointment, rumors, and speculation, but all of that could be long forgotten if this team can make a run to Phoenix. We're 5 games into the season, and here's what we know about Kentucky basketball. As it sits right now, before Thanksgiving, Kentucky is 4-1 on the season, with their only loss being to number 1 Kansas in a game that they were the better team for probably 30 minutes of, and a close overtime win against St. Joseph's. But overall, the Cats are playing well and averaging 90 points per game, which is just insane. The clear issue for the team right now is size, and we'll get into that in a minute. But right now, I want to start with some positives. To me, the best part about this team is that there's not any one player that dominates everything. Take last year's team, for example. Oscar led the team in scoring, rebounding, and blocks, and Kaysen led in assists and steals. This year, the team is so versatile, a different player leads each category. Reeves is leading the team in scoring, Adu leads in rebounding, Rob leads in assists, Reed leads in steals, and Trey leads in blocks. And while they're all leaders, any one of those could lead in any other category on any other given night. 6 of our 8 players that play significant minutes are averaging double figures through 5 games, and only 8 turnovers to 18 assists, which is a great ratio, especially for a team that is this young and they play at the pace that they do. One of the biggest changes for this team compared to other Calipari teams is taking the amount of threes that they're taking and making. They're averaging 12 made threes per game and are taking 30. Both of which are the most in the John Calipari era, and I think a huge portion of the credit should go to John Welch for taking Cal's style of play and integrating it into a more modern style. And like Calipari always says, you don't have to make them all, but you just can't miss them all, and this team is making a lot more than they're missing. But let's talk about the individual players, and then we'll summarize everything at the end. Starting at the backcourt with DJ Wagner, overall I think he struggled to handle the pressure at UK early and find his game within the system. He took some small steps forward during the Kansas game, but really got it going in the last game against St. Joseph when he had 22 points, and Cal kind of forced him to be that guy. He was put in a situation where there's a lot of pressure. You're playing at home against a team you're much better than, but they just won't go away. And to his credit, he responded. I think it's clear that Calipari wanted the ball in his hands late. If there is area for him to improve his game, it's finishing at the rim and being a better perimeter defender. He has the ability to blow by his guy, but he's missing too many layups, and he can get beat too easily on defensive times. But if he keeps playing like he did against St. Joseph's, and he learns how to handle the pressure here a little better, he's the type of guy who can and will carry this team to a Final Four. Next is Rob Dillingham. 5 games in, and I think we've gotten the entire Rob Dillingham experience. Against Kansas, he got me more fired up in 90 seconds than I've been for UK basketball in probably the better part of the last 3 years. He's the type of player that can come into a game and be an offensive spark plug, but Rob giveth and Rob taketh away. In order to get the exciting Rob, you have to live with some really bad shots and really poor defense at times. So far, though, he's shown that he's probably the best point guard on the team this early in the season. Next in the backcourt is Antonio Reeves. He's been as good as we could have hoped for so far this year. He's taken a big jump from last year when it comes to scoring at all 3 levels. And with the other dynamic guards on the team, he's getting more open looks from 3 and knocking them down at a 40% rate and averaging 18 points a game. So I'll take that from him. I'm not upset with him at all. Then we have Reed Sheppard, who by all accounts may be the best all-around player on the team. If I'm not mistaken, he has the best plus-minus in all or most games, even when he isn't scoring. He's shown that he can go for 25 points like he did against Stonehill, or 0 like he did against St. Joseph's, and still impact the game and have the best plus-minus. When he's in the game, Kentucky plays better, plain and simple. On the wing, we have Justin Edwards, who to me has to be better, and I don't know a nicer way to put it. I know that in these games against bad teams, Cal is going to force him minutes so he can get in his groove. But up until now, he has been the biggest disappointment of the freshman class. We've seen flashes of athleticism and what he can be, but he gets beat defensively on a regular basis, and when he puts the ball on the ground to go towards the rim, it usually ends up in a turnover. I haven't given up faith with him. He may be the type of freshman that takes until SEC play to develop, and that's fine. But like DJ, we will only go as far as they take us. And that brings us to Adu Thiero. Adu has somewhat impressed me this season, but that's mostly because I had little to no expectations for him. He's really good at finishing at the rim through contact, and he is leading the team in rebounds. But he is likely the worst shooter of the guys who play, but he's also the guy who dive on balls and do the dirty work. He's getting 27 minutes a game right now, and I'd like that number to be a lot closer to 15 or 20, and I'm sure it will be when we get the bigs back. But in the meantime, I'm overall happy with his production. I just don't think that he can be that guy all season and must be really, really good. Jordan Burks kind of plays the same role as Adu, but isn't quite as developed. He makes some silly mistakes. He struggles to handle the ball, but he can score the ball fairly well, but just has to have a little bit more to improve on before he can be a real contributor. And last but not least, we have Trey Mitchell. Trey's probably the most important player on this team for not only the on-court stuff, but the off-court stuff. He's the vocal leader off the court. He's the veteran voice in the locker room, making sure guys are doing what they're supposed to, holding them accountable. We've seen him on the court get up in guys' face and be a coach on the court as well. Now, his on-the-court stuff, he is the de facto center, but to his credit, he's done phenomenal given he's 5 inches shorter than most of the guys he's going against. He's good around the rim. He can step out and make threes also. His passing out of the post has been a huge positive about his game as well. Thank goodness for Bob Huggins the past 3 years giving us our centers. But this is the first year in Trey's career where he has a positive assist-to-turnover ratio. So by all accounts, Trey's doing extremely well, and he is easily the most important player on this team, even if he's not the best. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning, the biggest question mark for this team is size. There are 3 7-footers on the roster who have yet to play a single minute. Aaron Bradshaw seems to be the closest to returning from a foot injury, but he is apparently starting full practices this week. There are rumors that he will play, or depending on when you see this, have played against Marshall. We'll see if that happens, but having him for Miami would be a huge, huge bonus in shot blocking, rim protection, and rebounding. Kentucky's been abused on the boards early in the year. Bradshaw's also the type of center, like Mitchell, who can shoot from the outside and put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. Next would be Zvonimir Ivisic. He is fully healthy and just waiting to be cleared by the NCAA. I know how slow the NCAA is when it comes to these types of things, and they drag on just a little too long. But I am starting to get a little skeptical. But overall, while he's good for depth, I don't expect him to be a critical part of the roster moving forward. So no huge loss there, but it would be nice to get him in. And then we have Ugana Onyenso, who's also battling an injury and will likely be the last of the 3 to return. But like Ivisic, I don't expect a huge impact from him. Overall, once the roster is fully healthy, I think this team has everything they need to be poised for a deep run in March. They have multiple guys who can take over a game at any point, and unlike last year, won't be reliant on just 1 or 2 guys to have a good night every single night like they have been the past few seasons. When Reeves went 1-9 against Kansas State last year, they had no one else who could create offense, and I don't think that's going to be an issue for this group. Also, they have a guy who can beat their man one-on-one, which isn't something Kentucky's had recently. Ty could do it, but he was injured a lot of the season. And Kaysen could, but Cal stuck with Severe way too long. And this year, DJ, Rob, Justin, and even Reed and Antonio to some extent can get their own shot and beat their man. When it gets late in the shot clock, you have to have guys that can win one-on-one situations instead of just dribbling the air out of the ball and forcing a long 2. Once the bigs are fully integrated into the rotation and healthy, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find many more complete teams in college basketball. They were able to hang with and potentially beat the number 1 team in the country while undersized and short-handed. Once the freshmen fully develop and we add size, I think Big Blue Nation can expect big things this season. No one is better at building and coaching a team like this to peak in March than John Calipari, and I think he is setting this team up to do just that. In a previous video, I had this team going 24-7, runner-up in the SEC tournament, and finishing in the Elite 8 in the NCAA tournament. After 3 weeks of watching this team, I think I've raised my floor just slightly for them. I'm thinking maybe 25-6 or 26-5 in the regular season. I think this would be a great team to get back to winning the SEC tournament and maybe the regular season title too. The regular season title can be a little unpredictable, but I think they should and could win the SEC tournament. Then I still think the Elite Eight is a reasonable standard in March. While I think this team has the full makeup of a Final Four and championship contender, holding anyone to that standard is a little crazy, but I don't doubt come March that there will be 8 teams better than Kentucky. That's going to wrap up this video, guys. I hope you have or had a great Thanksgiving. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let me know your thoughts on this team this early in the season. I'll see you guys next week. Go Cats.